Do you know the UK experienced several significant defeats during World War II, each with its own impact on the war? First up is the fall of France in 1940. The fall of France was a devastating blow for the United Kingdom. France, a key ally, was rapidly overrun by Nazi forces in a matter of weeks. This swift and unexpected defeat shocked the world and left Britain in a vulnerable position. With the fall of France, the front line of the war moved alarmingly close to the British Isles. The United Kingdom, previously part of a formidable alliance, suddenly found itself standing alone against the colossal might of Nazi Germany. It was a chilling realization that shook the nation to its core. The loss of France marked a pivotal moment in the course of World War II. With France's rapid defeat, Britain stood alone against Nazi Germany, significantly altering the course of the war. Next, we delve into the Dunkirk evacuation of 1940, a moment that was not a defeat in the traditional sense, but a harrowing retreat that left an indelible mark on the course of World War II. In the face of an advancing German army, British and Allied forces found themselves cornered on the beaches of Dunkirk. In what seemed like an impossible situation, an audacious plan was hatched. Operation Dynamo, as it was called, aimed to evacuate these stranded men across the English Channel, back to the safety of Britain. Over a period of 9 tense days, a flotilla of over 800 vessels, ranging from naval destroyers to civilian fishing boats, braved the treacherous waters and enemy fire to rescue more than 300,000 soldiers. Yet, in the process, a vast amount of equipment and material was left behind, a substantial blow to the Allied war effort. The Dunkirk evacuation may not have been a defeat in the traditional sense, but it was a harrowing retreat that left its mark on the war. The Battle of Crete in 1941 marked the first major defeat of Allied forces in World War II. The German military, having honed its airborne invasion skills to a sharp edge, set its sights on the island of Crete. The island was of strategic importance, serving as a potential springboard for Allied forces into southeastern Europe. The Germans launched their assault with a sky filled with paratroopers, a sight chilling enough to unsettle any soldier. The Allied forces, composed mainly of British, Australian, and New Zealand troops, put up a fierce resistance. But they were overwhelmed by the German onslaught. The battle was fierce, the losses high, but in the end, Crete fell. The German forces claimed victory, leaving the Allies to retreat and regroup. The loss in Crete was a significant blow, marking the first major defeat of the Allies in the war. This defeat, however, was far from the end, and it only served to fuel the fire of determination in the hearts of the Allies. Moving into 1942, we come to the Battle of Singapore, often called the worst disaster in British military history. This was a time when the sun never set on the British Empire, and Singapore was its impregnable fortress in the east. But in February of that year, the unimaginable happened. The Japanese forces, despite being numerically inferior, managed to capture Singapore in just 7 days. It was a classic case of underestimating the enemy and overconfidence in one's own defenses. The fall of Singapore was a shocking blow to British prestige, seen by many as the moment when the aura of British invincibility was shattered. The loss of Singapore and its vast naval base left the Allies without a foothold in the Far East, compromising their ability to wage war against Japan effectively. The fall of Singapore was a huge blow to the Allies, severely weakening their position in the Far East. Let's now turn our attention to the fall of Tobruk in 1942. This was a time when the Mediterranean theater was a fierce battleground. Tobruk, a key port city in North Africa, was a vital stronghold for the Allies. Its loss was a significant setback in the Mediterranean campaign. In the early months of 1942, the Axis powers mounted a relentless assault. Despite the valiant efforts of the Allied forces, Tobruk fell into the hands of the Axis, marking a turning point in the North African campaign. This defeat was more than just a territorial loss. It was a strategic blow, disrupting supply lines and weakening the overall position of the Allies in the region. The fall of Tobruk also had psychological repercussions. It was a blow to the morale of the Allied forces and a boost for the Axis powers. Yet it was in such adversity that the resolve of the Allies was tested and strengthened. With the fall of Tobruk, the Allies lost a crucial foothold in North Africa. The Battle of Greece in 1941, despite valiant resistance, led to another defeat for British and Greek forces. This was a time when hope was thin on the ground, but the spirit of the Greek and British soldiers remained unbroken. They stood their ground against the Axis forces, fighting with everything they had. The invasion was swift and brutal, with the Axis forces showing no mercy. The Allies fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Greek and British forces put up a valiant resistance, but it was not enough. The country fell into the hands of the Axis powers. Greece, a proud nation with a rich history, was now under the control of the enemy. The occupation was a dark time for the Greek people. Their freedom was taken away, their country occupied, their lives changed forever. The defeat in Greece further weakened the Allies' position in Europe, but the spirit of the Greek and British soldiers, their valiant resistance would not be forgotten. Next, we look at the Battle of Hong Kong in 1941, another early defeat for British forces in the Pacific theater. As the winds of war swept across the globe, the Pacific was not spared. The British colony of Hong Kong found itself in the crosshairs of the Japanese Empire. With a swift and brutal invasion, the Japanese forces descended upon Hong Kong on December 8th, just hours after the infamous attack on Pearl Harbor. Despite a valiant defense by the British, Canadian, Indian, and Hong Kong troops, the odds were heavily stacked against them. Outnumbered and outgunned, the defenders of Hong Kong fought a desperate and losing battle. On Christmas Day, 1941, after 17 grueling days of combat, the British governor surrendered Hong Kong to the Japanese. The loss of Hong Kong marked another blow to British prestige and power in the Pacific. The sun was setting on the British Empire, and the shadows of defeat were growing longer. The Battle of Malaya from 1941 to 1942 further weakened British and Allied positions in Southeast Asia. As the Japanese forces rolled in, they were met with resistance from the Allies, but the strategic and tactical prowess of the Japanese military soon became evident. The campaign in Malaya was swift and brutal, with the Japanese forces using a combination of speed, surprise, and savagery to overpower the Allies. This battle was not just about territory, it was about resources. Rich with rubber plantations and tin mines, Malaya was a strategic asset that the Allies could ill afford to lose, yet lose it they did. The fall of Singapore, often referred to as the worst disaster in British military history, followed shortly after. The Japanese had not only gained a significant foothold in Southeast Asia, but also dealt a severe blow to the prestige and power of the British Empire. The defeat in Malaya was another significant loss for the Allies in the Pacific theater. The Battle of Norway in 1940 resulted in the defeat of British and Allied forces. The German invasion of Norway was a crucial strategic move in the early stages of World War II. The British and their allies had hoped to safeguard Norway, a country known for its vital sea lanes and heavy water, an essential component for the development of nuclear weapons. However, the German forces, with their blitzkrieg tactics and superior air power, quickly overwhelmed the Allied defenses. The British and their allies fought bravely, but the Germans were relentless. Despite the bitter cold and treacherous terrain, the Germans pressed on, ultimately securing a decisive victory. This defeat had far-reaching effects. The loss of Norway gave the Axis powers control over the North Atlantic sea routes. These were crucial for the movement of troops, supplies, and resources, contributing significantly to their war effort. With the occupation of Norway, the Axis gained control of vital sea routes. Finally, we come to the Blitz from 1940 to 1941. This was not a battle in the traditional sense, but a relentless bombing campaign against British cities, with London bearing the brunt of the attacks. The Blitz was a period of intense hardship and danger, as the skies filled with enemy aircraft night after night, turning the serene landscape into a fiery tableau of destruction. The impact on morale and infrastructure was significant. The British people, however, demonstrated an indomitable spirit. They huddled together in shelters, sang songs to lift their spirits, and emerged each morning to rebuild their shattered cities. The Blitz was a testament to their resilience and courage, a symbol of their refusal to surrender to fear or despair. This period of sustained adversity had a profound effect on the national psyche. It was a trial by fire that tested the mettle of the British people, and they emerged from it stronger and more united. The Blitz, while not a battle in the traditional sense, tested the resolve of the British people like never before. Each defeat had its own impact on the course of World War II. The fall of France in 1940 left Britain standing alone against Nazi Germany. The Dunkirk evacuation, though not a traditional defeat, was a harrowing retreat that left behind much equipment and material. The Battle of Crete marked the first major defeat of Allied forces. The fall of Singapore to the Japanese was a significant blow to British prestige and power in the Far East. The fall of Tobruk was a setback for the Allies in the Mediterranean. The invasion of Greece by Axis forces led to the defeat of British and Greek forces. The occupation of Hong Kong marked another early defeat for British forces in the Pacific. The campaign in Malaya severely weakened British and Allied positions in Southeast Asia. The German invasion of Norway led to the occupation of the country and control of its vital sea routes. The Blitz, a sustained bombing campaign against British cities, inflicted heavy casualties and damage. While these defeats were significant, they played a role in galvanizing the UK and its allies, leading to eventual victories and the turning of the tide against the Axis powers.